record on this computer. There we go. Recording is started.
All right, then let's call the Port Orchard City Council Finance Committee of February 16th to order. And I guess we're going to start since Noah is MIA, the mayor. Do we want to touch on the financial reports?
Certainly, I will stop sharing the agenda and I will share the sales tax report. There you go. And as you, it was when it was emailed out in the package. I've never seen a stronger month out of the city. So in all my years in our city government, and we were almost $100,000 over budget, and REIT was also $13,400 over budget. So
I have questions.
All right.
About the sale. First of all, I will start with the sales tax revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that it's very strong, and it was strong last year. And the mayor has said on more than one occasion that we're seeing strong sales tax because of the building that is happening within Port Orchard.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, I'm assuming from that when we have homes that are being built and they get lumber drops or they get concrete or any of these things, appliances, whatever they need, that we're capturing that sales tax revenue now, just like we do from Amazon.
Yes.
And so my question is, do we have a way to break that out so that we kind of know how much that is?
Not easily, but yes.
So it's not like a line item. It would be like every lumber company that delivers would be there. So yeah, that would make it somewhat onerous, but I'm correct in that assumption.
Yes. I mean, we are, I think, still benefiting from shop local. Our government jobs haven't missed a beat.
Right.
During COVID, and the naval base in particular, and talking to Joe Morrison, the new executive director over at KEDA, there is a shortage of skilled labor in Kitsap County, and there are a lot of jobs available, and that is drawing people to Kitsap County, which is feeding our housing market.
I would guess that you could take a look at some, just as indicators like Lowe's versus Amazon versus Walmart, Fred Meyer's, just to get kind of a feel. Auto sales, those are kind of the biggies in the city, and just try to see that, gee, 10% of this came from Lowe's and 2% came from Walmart. I mean, just as a quick 50,000 foot look at it.
Yeah, and we can't speak publicly about individual businesses because of the documents that we sign for non-disclosure.
I wouldn't suggest that you suggest names. I would just say that sectors. Auto sales versus retail versus online versus home improvement.
Right. I was just kind of wondering if there was a way to pull out what that building activity is really, how much we're really benefiting from that. And that sounds like it may be difficult, but
I will attempt to maybe report out on that at next week's council meeting. Corey, who does that for us, when we ask, it's Friday's payday and she's doing payroll.
Right.
So it's mining data, and there isn't any piece of software. She's just got to go through this report and pull out things that would be construction related,
And I don't really want to make someone a lot of work, but I just thought it would be interesting, because when we get further in our agenda and we look at all of the projects that Nick listed in his reports and what we saw at economic development the other day, I just think I think tying all those numbers together would be useful.
Yeah. And some of what Nick is showing you, that we've got current, we've got projected, and then, and really the housing beginning a year ago, remember, everything shut down and you couldn't build a house. And so this is really this housing, what the numbers that we're going to look at here in a few minutes are fourth quarter primarily, and first quarter is just insane already this year. I mean, first month is just insane. So yeah, it's a good problem to have. I'd rather be managed, as I shared from my mayor's exchange, 60% of the cities out there saw a 10% or more decline in their sales tax revenue, and that's not us at all.
Beck, did you have another question on REIT?
Not necessarily on REIT, but I guess what my question really is I'm assuming it's because the finance department got very busy with budgeting and year end and have just been really busy, but they have been sending us monthly a report to all of the council. Mm-hmm. And in that report, there was fee activity, how much was going into parks or traffic impact fees, or we saw that breakout. And that's kind of a, again, going off of Nick's report that we're going to get to in a minute, those are going to be significant numbers for a while to us. And I was just wondering if there was a place, because I know they were included in that report before, and I'm wondering if he can continue to generate that report or just pull those particular numbers out for us so we could take a look at them.
So Rebecca, I know you know what report she's referring to, and I believe it's not this week, we're a week or two away from having our year closed out. And so once you close the year out, so once you address that, Rebecca, if you could.
So the monthly reports that normally are sent out were just kind of delayed because we had to hold, we're required to hold January open until, December 2020 open until the end of January. And so that delays all of these right at the beginning of the year month reports, but you will start to see those.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you. And I couldn't find November's. I found, the last one I found was sent to us in the latter part of November, and it was as of the end of third quarter. Okay, and so fine. I thought that you guys just got busy with budgeting and everything else in year end. So
I believe November's is out there, so I can resend that to you, Beck. And then December just kind of got held up because of year end, so it'll be coming out this week.
Thank you.
Maybe you could send that report for November out to the full committee.
I will do that.
Yeah.
Was that it, Beck?
Yeah, those were my questions.
Just for clarification, Mayor, you had quoted some percentages, but when you're comparing what we received over budget, reached 148%.
Yes, I guess you're right.
If you're looking at year over year.
Year over year, yes. The budget, yeah, you're right. $43,000 over the budget. And yeah.
Well, 43 is what we brought in, and it's, excuse me, that's the over the budget amount. Sorry, 43. Same with the sales tax. We just shy of 100,000 at 24.8%. Yeah. Okay.
You're correct.
Excellent. Anything else on the?
I just wanted to, just share those numbers with you, and I know Noah sent them out end of last week.
Right.
And we were all a bit shocked. I knew it was good, but this is crazy good.
Well, it is, but we still have 23 more months to go. So
yeah, and we have to keep up with the growth.
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't spend it yet.
Okay, the next item, Steve Havard, our IT manager, is here with us, and we're seeing, we saw Bainbridge Island had a breach reported in the Kitsap Sun over the weekend, and last week we were on the phone on a conference call with the state auditors, and they had a data breach, and we had a record involved in it. It wasn't a big deal. It was a public document, but It's a big deal, and Steve's going to talk to us about some software that he's recommending that we acquire to minimize our risk. So go ahead, Steve.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for letting me, talk about this today. So hopefully, I think Noah sent out that the memo or the description that I drafted to kind of describe what it is and how it works. And it's something that, was not on my radar or anybody's radar really at the beginning, well, when we started doing budgeting. But I became aware of this software through the Association of City and Counties Information System Services. And we have a annual conference. And so they have vendors. And anyway, so that's about how I became aware of it and started to kind of look at it towards the end of last year. And so basically it's a different approach to cybersecurity, rather than relying on kind of traditional methods, which as I said in my document, it look for databases and signatures of existing software that's known to be malware. They take a different approach and look at the pattern of activity on the network and in our email traffic. And then after learning that, they identify, anomalies. So they can start to see, well, Rob gets X number of emails a day. And if all of a sudden he starts getting a significant increase in that one day, that's a red flag. It might be nothing, but it might be something indicating he's being targeted by a phishing campaign. So that's the basic idea. One example of one of the presentations that I saw at one of these ACCIS conferences talked about was the city of Sammamish, basically, talking about what happened to them in 2019, and they were attacked by a ransomware. They had a number of circumstances that made them highly vulnerable. They were in the process. They didn't have an IT director. They were in the process of recruiting for some. They hired down a few people of staff, so they were in a vulnerable situation. But anyway, so what happened to them was they were basically down. All their systems were down for about 4 weeks. And I've got some numbers as far as the cost involved. So they said the hard costs were about $40K. So that was just for new equipment, new software to provide protection. And then they said forensics and legal was about $80K. So they had to hire a company to come in and look at what happened and understand what data may have gotten exfiltrated, what measures they might be able to take to protect anybody who might have been part of that data exfiltration. Attorneys, because then they have to basically announce to the citizens what happened, and there's a lot of requirements. Once a data breach happens, as to how you go about letting the public know and any of your constituents. And then soft costs, they said, well, about 1.1 million in lost employee productivity, and they had a calculation on that. So just gives you an idea of the potential cost of one of these ransomware attacks. And that really is the big item that seems to be the biggest problem these days. These organizations from outside of the US send an email, which is basically, we call it a phishing email. And if somebody clicks on it, then it starts to encrypt data that's on the server. And then they send you an email and say, hey, if you want your data unencrypted, then you got to pay us X number of dollars. So that's kind of the way those typically work. And sometimes they can be sitting there for a long time before they actually do their thing. So really, it's the weak link is the employee who is looking at their email and maybe not paying attention to what they're clicking. And we've got training in place, annual training, cybersecurity training, which I'm sure most of you have seen. We do quarterly tests, send out fake phishing emails to see if people will click on it. And unfortunately, it seems like every quarter we got about 3 people who click on a link. And so that would potentially have caused some sort of a breach or a malware incident. So the whole point of this is to, try to prevent that from happening. And by monitoring all this traffic, the idea behind it could prevent that individual from getting that email that might be, represent a breach in our network and, this kind of an incident, ransomware. So that's basically it. And what kind of questions does everybody have?
Well, like you said that you learned of this software through AWC and your connections there. Have they found this to be fairly effective or the better of the bunch?
Yeah, yeah. There are at least 3 other cities and a county that I communicated with and that use it, and they're happy with it. I guess it's the kind of thing. It's like having insurance, right? You hope that you never have to actually use it. It's just sitting there protecting you. So none of them have said that they are aware of it actually, catching anything significant. But again, as far as I know, we haven't been targeted, or let's put it this way. I'm sure we've been targeted because we get spam and phishing emails all the time, but we haven't had a breach yet. My thought is, well, I think as much protection as we can get, there's the number of threats, the sheer volume is increasing, plus the sophistication of these, threats is getting better and better. I mean, it used to be that you could tell because the spelling was bad, that, okay, this is bogus, but now they use, corporate logos from Microsoft and other companies, and, they're getting very sophisticated. So it's getting very difficult to tell the real stuff from the bad stuff. So anyway.
So this software isn't necessarily going to guarantee you never to get hacked, but what it does is look for anomalies and gives flags on things. Is that basically what it's looking at?
Right. Yeah. So it can do 2 things. One is it alert you and say, okay, you might want to take a look at this. And then the other thing is that you can start setting up rules so it will automatically respond to something. So if something happens, in the middle of the night when I'm not going to see an alert, or anybody, is going to see an alert, we can configure it to say, hey, if that happens, if somebody gets an attachment that the attachment looks like it's bogus, then block it. Don't let it get through. Same thing if it's a link in an email and it looks suspicious based on whatever criteria, then block it, prevent it from getting there. So, those are the kinds of things. So it can be automated to protect us. And obviously that would be dialed in over time because some things will block. We probably want to be a little more aggressive at first. And then as we learn more, we dial it back a little bit because we've learned that, there's things that are legitimate that might be getting stuck.
I unfortunately haven't seen your memo. So is the price of this, is it a one-time or annual?
It's an annual. What they're proposing is basically estimated cost per month is $2,250 a month. It's a 48-month agreement. So total is $108,000. There is a piece of equipment that is part of it, which would go in our network, server room. So they've priced it so that as a kind of a monthly cost. We would have the option to purchase the equipment and then pay the actual service fee, subscription fee, which would then lower the per month cost. So, there's different ways of kind of dicing it, slicing and dicing it financially, but.
So about 26,000 a year.
I would just add that this is, unfortunately kind of a sign of the times, and this is a bit of a potential insurance policy. I mean, the event that we do get infiltrated, the expenses that we would incur to go through the protocols that are mandated of us are significant. So I do understand what Steve is saying, and you know, while it's unfortunate, it is a reality in the sign of our times.
So it's 108,000 for the 48 months. Did that calculate that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so about 26 a year,
I think that's 27.
27, okay.
Yeah.
So I know Noah, this is on the agenda, and Noah will, you know, is planning on, with your concurrence and recommendation, to bring this to next Tuesday's council meeting.
Well, you're talking to a real novice when it comes to IT, so I'm going with the recommendation. You think it's important. I've got faith in you, Steve.
Oh, well,
Certainly
thank
not
you.
an expert, but I've seen this and lived it and understand it and understand the importance. So I would also be supportive of it.
Beck, you okay with it too?
Yes, I am. Yes, I
Okay.
am.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. You're welcome to
Thank
talk
you.
about DCD permits with us if you'd like, or you can go have dinner. So
I think I'll go have dinner, but I appreciate the offer. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
all
So,
right.
Mayor, is there a proposal on how this is going to be covered, or is this going to be part of a,
It's going to need to be part of a budget amendment. You know,
so when would you plan or anticipate pulling the trigger on this?
no, I saw the draft agenda for next week, and Noah has it on the agenda next week. It was when we, you know, it was already kind of, we've been talking to Steve about it, and him and Han about the cost. And then we had a conference call with the state auditors, and they got breached. And then, like I said, this weekend we had Bainbridge Island had a data breach, and you know, Sean's spot on. Steve was just talking about the cost. It'll cost us, you know, 4 or 5 times this amount if we, if our data got breached. And it's, you know, how can you not?
Well, I agree. And it's, you know, the only thing is what I heard, there's no guarantee. I mean, once you buy this, it doesn't mean you're not going to get, it's just that you're taking steps, whatever we can do to try to head it off. But yeah, I'm fine with it now. I should have asked this to Steve. I guess this is a recommendation from that committee at AWC, or it's being endorsed by that committee as.
I don't believe so, John. It was just something he, a particular, it was the same like with the website. You know, you go to these conferences and you talk, you know, vendors give presentation and you go, oh, you know, and then you get a list of the cities that are using that service, and then you reach out to those cities and, you know, how's this working for you? And that's how we ended up with our website. And so Steve's done his due diligence. I think like I said, we've been talking about it internally for a couple of months now.
I heard him say he reached out to 3 cities in the county, and they seem to be fine with it. Okay, all right.
Mayor, if this comes to council, would maybe have a chance to talk to our insurer and to see what type of coverage we currently have in the event of an attack.
We do. We do.
Maybe to understand kind of what those limits are, and maybe what our risks over and above those limits would be. That might be helpful for the full council to understand.
Yeah. And, you know, when we've got a deductible too.
Understand. Yeah. So if you just bring all that forward, it just might help inform the conversation.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, I'm
Okay.
ready to move on to the next item. I'll share my screen again here, at least Nick's memo for the record anyway. Well, there it is. Okay, and it's a staff report. And so Nick, if you want to talk about this, maybe at a high level, you don't have to read this whole staff report.
Oh, sure.
The council has probably done their homework, and we talked about this a little bit, so.
Sure. So I mentioned at our last council meeting that in January, we took in building permit applications for more units of housing than we issued permits in all of 2020. And so it is an understatement to say that our department is busy right now. We are, you know, 5 times busier in terms of permitting volume than we have ever been before. I put together a proposal tonight to make 3 staffing changes that are Relatively minor steps. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit that is available to me to increase our department's capacity to process this workload. And the 3 steps are, number 1, creating a permit technician job description and looking at facilitating the promotion of 2 permit clerks into permit technicians. And with this would come additional responsibility that would be taken from both the building inspector position and the planner positions, and shifted to those clerk positions. And so one of the recommendations of the organizational study that was prepared by our consultants late last year was to consider creating these sorts of positions and giving the opportunity for these staff members to move up and take on more responsibility as they get experience. And so it's estimated that this move would cost $5,000 per permit clerk in 2021 and $8,000 per clerk in 2022 if made permanent. I think one of the clerks is immediately ready to make this move and has the certifications. Another clerk is close. And then I think the planning clerk for now would stay just a clerk position, but that's something that we could revisit in the future. I did include job descriptions for the building permit clerk, which are still very much a rough draft, but we sat down with our entire team and asked each employee, what tasks they felt could be shifted to this person, and kind of made a comprehensive list of the work that could move. And it is, there are more tasks, I think, than we can possibly assign to this person, but it provides sort of a range of the things we may ask them to do going forward if this move was approved. The second proposal that is one you have seen before is our planning clerk is still currently at less than 30 hours per week, and we are proposing to make that position full-time. One of the reasons is she is the clerk to the hearing examiner, and we have already had 1 hearing in 2021, and we have 6 more permits in that will go to the hearing examiner likely before the middle of summer. And so that exceeds, that would set a record for the most hearing examiner hearings we've had in a year ever, and that's only in half a year. I would expect at least 2 or 3 more applications to come in the near future. And compiling the hearing examiner records is a really time-intensive process. You have to label exhibits, distribute packets, and so that takes away from our ability to actually take permits in. And one of the things we've noticed is that sometimes we're seeing a 10-day delay between when the permit gets mailed to our department and when that clerk is able to transmit it to staff. And so it's causing problems in our review because in some cases, we have 14 days to respond to certain applications when they come in. And so our planners are getting things and they only have a few days to turn it around. The third proposal is to look at hiring an intern. And I know that we talked about creating an intern policy for the city. I don't think we've quite gotten there yet, but in talking to HR, we believe that we can bring an intern in and start having them help with some of our planning tasks. One of those tasks is we are moving forward on the next sub-area plan for the McCormick Woods area. And so that's a project that I would like to get some assistance from an intern again. And this position could be it could be a low hour position or a higher hour position. I'm really hoping that we can bring somebody in the 20 to 30 hour a week range. But, I'm looking for the right skill set more than I'm looking for the hours. And one of the hopes here would be that if our workloads continue, and we obviously have our periodic update to the comprehensive plan, which is due in 2024, would be looking at making this more of an assistant planner position long-term, or at least, maybe looking at like a 2-year temporary planner position to get us through our comprehensive plan update cycle. So those are the 3 steps that we are requesting. The total 2021 cost is estimated to be about $77,000. In 2022, that would increase to $85,000, although that assumes an intern and not an assistant planner. The other thing that we provided in the report and in your packet was we provided a revenue report on building permit activity. And so in 2020, the permit total revenue for licenses, permits, the building permits, et cetera, zoning permits like subdivisions or conditional use permits, and plan check fees, we brought in $873,000 above what we budgeted for revenue. And in 2021, it's only mid-February, and we've already brought in 40% of budgeted revenue. So we are pretty clearly exceeding our forecasts for revenue related to this permitting activity. And with those increases in revenue comes a whole lot of work that needs to be done related to processing those permits. And so there's a very clear relationship between the revenue and the requested expenditure in this case. So with that said, I did include a whole lot of detail about the projects that are underway right now. We have, I think I mentioned, we have 335 apartment units of housing that came in January alone. That's on top of other apartment projects that came in late 2020. We only took in 10 single-family building permits in January, but that was also because we had 3 final plats that were awaiting council approval. 2 of those have now been approved, and so there are now, in McCormick North, we had 88 lots added to our finished and ready to build lots list. And then at Stetson Heights, we had 103 lots approved. And so we expect single-family building permit activity to pick up very rapidly. And then McCormick Parcel A and the Blueberry Ridge subdivision should be coming to council in March for final approval, which is going to add another 150 or so single-family lots that are finished and ready for construction to begin. So again, I mentioned these are the low-hanging items, the easy to implement items, especially considering we're teleworking and in COVID. Ideally, if we had the ability for everybody to be in the office at the same time, we might look at hiring. We might look at other options such as hiring new staff that would have to be trained. It's just really hard to train people right now. And so these steps are really the only thing that I can do to get people who are familiar with our system and our rules and get them working at a higher level immediately.
One thing Nick and I have talked about too is if we bring this intern on, in 90 or 120 days to evaluate, is this still running this hot? And if we do, it is, then potentially as part of the mid-year review process or just ahead of it, we turn that into an assistant planner position. At least it carries us to our comprehensive plan process. So there's plenty of work, I think, in the next couple of years for another planner. But I think starting with an intern is a logical first step and seeing where that takes us. Sean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, no one has a magic crystal ball on how long this is going to go. But, what Nick is asking for is only about 4.5% of the anticipated additional revenue. So to me, this is an absolute no-brainer. When business volumes, you flex both ways, right? When revenues decrease, you try to flex down. And when revenues increase, you have to flex up. And so, I guess I would just say, is this really the right next move? Or Rob, to your point, that assistant planner, again, we may have to flex 2 to 3 years from now, but we need the human resources in place to be able to meet the demands of our customer. And so I would be supportive of listening to Nick and his department and mayor of just understanding the human resources you need to meet the demand of this forecast.
I don't have a problem with what you're proposing, Nick. In fact, I'm supportive of it. My only concern is kind of what Sean was suggesting, is that certainly we have the workload now that justifies these additional folks, but at what point, if housing does slow down, we have to be prepared to, what did you say, flex?
Yeah.
Flex down if necessary. So I think with that in mind, I'm perfectly fine with what you're proposing, including if you need the assistant planner.
Excellent. I was just going to say concerning the ongoing workload and flexing, McCormick has prepared a 2-year forecast of their activity, and they have indicated that with the investments they're making in those 2 roundabout projects, as well as the investments they're making in our water system, they really have to continue at the levels that they're at in order to make those investments worthwhile. And so even if other things in Port Orchard slow down some, I sort of expect McCormick Woods to continue at their current rate, which is significantly higher than what we saw from 2017 to 2019. So I'm feeling relatively comfortable even out beyond 2024. But if something big happened, that could change. But they're making a big investment, and I expect them to continue at their current rate.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it, but as Sean says, nobody has a crystal ball, so we just need to be aware of it is all. Beck, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, these permit technicians, are they doing basically single family homes? They're not doing the apartments? Or I don't understand how that works. I mean, will these people be qualified to do apartments? Or are they basically doing our, the McCormick Woods and the Stetson Heights and those where a lot of the homes are a common design?
So they're not going to be doing plan review for anything other than over-the-counter permit types. So they'll do minor land disturbing activity permits where it's just a basic, you're going to disturb 1,000 square feet of property, and we're verifying that you have erosion control plans in place. They won't be reviewing houses except for compliance with our architectural design standards. They don't look at the actual building code requirements for new construction. They'll be able to answer more. Currently, they don't answer really any zoning or code related questions. They can point you to where to find things on your own, and they take permits in, process permits, and get them routed, but they're purely clerical right now. So this is going to move them into the realm where they're doing some of the more basic tasks, reviewing business licenses for compliance with zoning, and trying to identify issues that need to be resolved between the applicant and the city's code. So that's something above and beyond what they do now. And currently the planners are having to do most of that work. So they're answering questions about zoning density and critical area buffers and other things that are required. And so this is going to shift that to the front counter and give the planners more time to spend on reviewing the more complex projects.
This is one of the recommendations that came from Synergy in that organizational assessment. I believe Kitsap County uses this, and most of our peers cities have gone to this model. We're a bit behind the times, and it was something that I'd planned to bring forward in the future, but the future is here today.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, I support it. Whatever you need to run efficiently, we need to be willing to support that.
In the next 6 months to a year, if we make that assistant planner, we're going to need Nick's office probably to go to the model we've gone to here in the administrative side over here is flexible workspaces too. We're not going to have, everybody's not going to have their own office anymore. That's just the reality of our workplace, and COVID's kind of forced us into that and to be more to embrace teleworking, and it's working very well for most of our employees. All right, I'll stop sharing on this one. And back to our Chessie water system discussions. Mr. Dorsey, I don't have a slide for this, but I'll let you talk about the CFC's discussion.
Okay, so I guess in general, I actually prepared a kind of my own document to keep myself on track that had to do with the sewer CFCs. We know that the city adopted those back in September of 22nd of 2020. We know that the sewer credits are scheduled for the 23rd. We know that the general sewer plan is scheduled for the 23rd to adopt that amendment with 2022 being the actual general sewer plan update. So the next kind of item on the list is to be looking at the water CFCs, which we've already initiated that study. So we've already looked at the sewer CFCs. We'll look at the water CFCs next. And that'll be basically Q1 of 2021. And
when Mark says CFCs, it's capital facilities.
sorry, the capital facility charges, a lot of acronyms in this work. We will then be looking at water as a part of that, or as a function of the water CFC discussion. We'll also be looking at the water and sewer rates, which those will be discussed in Q2 of 2021. And then the ancillary, which obviously are the sewer CFC credits, which I believe will be on the agenda for the February 23rd meeting. And then subsequent to the water CFC conversation, we'll then have a water CFC credit ordinance that will follow the one that will be on the agenda on the 23rd. So that'll all be done, and then we'll get into the water and the sewer rates Q2, Q3 of this year. So, and then the water system plan should have been approved right now. We're getting into a little bit of a problem with COVID and some understanding on DOH's staff about approval of these plans. Potentially it won't get approved till next fall. So we're challenging that process. So I guess in general, that's really kind of what I have on my little docket here. And I can definitely send this to anybody if they want it. Just to follow along.
So Mark, you're talking the rate discussion would be in Q2, Q3?
Yeah, for
Okay.
both water and sewer.
Yeah.
Because remember that the general sewer plan amendment that we just adopted had an updated capital improvement list. So we'll run with that for water and sewer rates in advance of actually doing the plan update. The plan update's fairly minimal compared to the heavy lift we did in 2015 and 16. That was a complete rewrite. We've already got a new model in place. We've just amended it. I don't see the general sewer plan update in 2022 that Nick will adopt in 2023 as being a significant lift.
Okay.
Historically, we have done capital facilities charges and rates simultaneously. And we know that when we start talking about rates, that is a lengthy and arduous process. And we've got a tremendous amount of growth right now. So we're going to jump to the capital facilities charges. We already did it with sewer, and now we're going to do it with water and prioritize that body of work with the consultant, because the more of these capital facilities charges that we can collect during this spike in development, it can potentially minimize impacts to our ratepayers for some of this infrastructure that we need to build. So
And get a credit model in place that incentivize some of this infrastructure. So yeah, so the time is right to get this done. We can't wait until we have the longer water and sewer rate conversation, because as we know, we've had that conversation more than once in the 12 and a half years I've been here, and that potentially takes longer than we think it might take.
Okay. Excuse me, Sean, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to make a statement. As we continue to bring rates forward, let's make sure that we're capturing, all of the new, ERUs, I guess, that we've brought on, over the last few years, and what we're projecting, the conversation we just had with Nick a few minutes ago, that we're projecting out what that revenue looks like, just to make sure that, we're not overcharging ratepayers, and we're understanding what, not only development's paying for development, but the new users then come in and are adding to that rate, just to make sure we measure twice and cut once.
Right. And we're also going to be looking at, we'll reopen, just because it's been requested already at utility committee. We're going to take a look at our current structure, our code structure, just make sure we're all on the same page moving forward. And we know that finance and utility billing already have some things that they want to change, just, what I'll say generally Scribner type issues that they want to fix. But, we may look at maybe where the tiers are, anything from just adjusting a tier level to actually going to a whole different model. I mean, that will be on the table because it always is when we talk about rates.
So Mark, at a high level, since we're running a little long here on 13 and 11, can you give us an update?
Yeah, 13, we're going to, between the Foster catch-22 and the fact that, we've had the 3 one-year extensions on that project, one due to the state capital budget not being approved, a Department of Health issue, and now we've got this catch-22 with the water rights. DOH is actually going to allow us to close that current $6 million loan out with a scope reduction at its current 3/4 of the way through, is they need this off their books. EPA's kind of jumping on them. So we're going to close this out, and then we're going to apply once we know what's happening with the water rights. Because if we've gotten well 13 online next fall, it would have sat there for 2 years potentially. So nobody wants that. So once we know that water rights are going to be resolved, we will then take that information, because we don't even know what we're designing for right now, quite honestly, on the mitigation side, whether it's net ecological benefit or in time, in kind. So once we know that, then we'll go ahead and apply for a loan that basically DOH says is going to score highly, up to $5 million, to do the final phase, which is the pumping treatment part of a design and a construction, and just get it done. Because we know that we've got Foster's not allowing us to move forward. Well 11, we actually applied for the $5 million for the construction of that. We scored really well. We are actually 1.5 points below the scoring line. So what health is going to do there is they've awarded us we didn't apply for it, but they're going to award us a $500,000 pre-construction. We're going to put that now into the contract that we had. Remember with Murray Smith, we did just a 30%. Well, we're going to now have money to pay for that 100% design. Once we get that design done and the engineer's estimate, then we can apply under the DWSRF for the $5 million well 11 project in that year. So we'll split our years up, potentially get 5 million for 5.5 million for well 11, and then get 4 million for well 13 in different budget years. We can't receive more than $5 million in any given year. Basically health, they understand that we've been on the cusp of a water moratorium, and the fact that they've already got time and money invested in well and 13 at this level, that really helps in them funding then the final phases to get them complete. And we know that on well 12, the issue there is needing to get the water rights resolved, because the developer doesn't want to move beyond the pilot hole until they have water rights. So we just need to get 11. 11, we're going to design and build so that it can immediately produce 750 gallons a minute, because that's what it is currently has rights for, with the ability to simply flip a switch and then get 15. Because we just recently did a pump test on it and we enlarged the casing. So that's the plan, is to get it online as soon as possible at 750. Once the water rights are resolved and we get all these change applications going, we're going to transfer them. We're going to take well 11 to 1,500 gallons, have the existing McCormick 3 well as a monitoring well and emergency source, decommission 1 and 2, and then we get 13 online. So, and then we got to get 12 going, but that's going to take Foster. So that's
okay.
Nutshell.
Mayor, City Hall debt.
Yeah, well, and I just wanted to talk about debt a little bit. We've got these major projects. We're going to talk tonight. We're going to get a presentation on City Hall that, little over $5 million in repairs, and construction management administration is another 600,000, takes us to 6 million. You put contingency on it and we're about 7 million. Mark shared with me today too that our right-of-way agent, that's this process related to the pathway, is going to take the scope from 200,000 to 600,000 because of the 800,000, sorry. So
And why?
go ahead, Mark.
The additional amount of work that's being caused by certain residents,
Or property owners.
property owners.
We've got to hire a specialized team. So anyway, so with that said, I will share my screen. These numbers are much larger than I would ever fathom, but I know as a council member, when we start talking about big numbers, right now we have, so our capacity for non-voted debt is 1.5 times our assessed value, and voted debt is 2.5 times. And 1.5 times right now is $33.5 million. And we have $4.8 million still outstanding on Tremont, which leaves us almost $29 million in available non-voted debt capacity. And these numbers exclude our enterprise funds. Things that we would do for a sewer or water utility are outside of this. This is general fund obligations. And we could, with the approval of the voters, we could have upwards to $51 million in debt. And I don't even want to fathom, we have to make the payments on this stuff, but but I just want to, as we're talking about City Hall tonight, I know I once sat in your seat and, gosh, these are big numbers and how are we going to do this? And we've recently, this past year, paid off City Hall, and we're looking at doing 20 to 25 year improvements to City Hall. And it's logical that we take out a new mortgage on City Hall in the neighborhood of $7 million. And there's probably some other needs out there too that we'll be talking about in the next year or two as we bring some of these other big capital projects forward.
Rob, what was the initial bond on the City Hall when it was built?
John, help me out. 3 million? That seems right. It was 6 million to build and we borrowed 3. Does that seem right?
Yeah, well, we had to refinance partway through because we had received a low interest loan, almost zero interest from, I don't know, rural something or other. Normdick's got us some funds, but then we refinanced it later. So I think you're right, Rob. I think when we did it, it was like 3 million.
Just under 3 million.
Yeah.
Scary.
Rural farms. I think it was the rural farm loan or something like that. It was a goofy thing that Mark found us.
Yeah, it was the rural farm.
Yeah.
Grant program or loan program.
What I know is not going to get cheap. We got siding and windows and a roof that are failing. And, 5 years ago when I first became mayor, the number was 3 million to do the shell and 6 million to add on the building, to do an addition onto the building. And and that addition doesn't address parking, and our own code would likely do to us what the county's project where they're adding 800 parking stalls. I've got a report that I think it's 60 or so parking stalls that we'd have to account for all of the parking in City Hall. So I think we don't touch the footprint of this. We address the weatherization of this building, and our future space needs are coming from somewhere else, whether it's the gravel lot across the street or something out on Tremont or an element of the community center, are all possibilities, but they're all going to be far cheaper than because we only have to park that building and not account for parking all of City Hall. So that was just informational. I was quite, wondering, and the numbers are much higher than I thought. So,
But it's still well within our ability to refinance. So,
Yes. Oh, yes.
yeah, to me, it's like taking out a refurbishment loan. So,
Rates right now are about 2% also. So pretty inexpensive to borrow.
now is that 2% just on the commercial market, or is that
That's
something
bond-
that was looked into?
Noah looked into that, what bond rates, just a touch under 2%.
Okay.
Chief Brown's contract, it will be it was in tonight's packet, I believe. Was it in the packet?
I don't believe so.
No, it wasn't ready for the finance committee
Okay.
pack.
I've reviewed it. He's reviewed it. Debbie worked on this, and the chief, and we're planning on bringing this to the full council next week with your endorsement. One of the provisions in the chief's contract was carry forward from the prior chief. The prior chief worked patrol on holidays, and the current chief doesn't do that practice. He doesn't work patrol at all. And so the prior chief, as a result of that, if he worked on a holiday, there were he got bonus holidays in his leave bank. Since Matt's not doing that, I'm not treating him any different than any other director in the city. You know, sometimes I work on a holiday or long weeks, and we have something called administrative leave. If you work 50 hours this week and you got your job done, you don't have to, you can take some time off, to compensate yourself. So we want the chief's contract to reflect how I treat all the other managers. And he's supportive of that idea. Did I miss anything there, Debbie?
Just a couple other cleanups. The contract basically quotes policy, and that's problematic if we should ever want to change that policy. So we're going to just make some housekeeping things to refer and incorporate by reference some policy language.
Okay.
So you're going to have something for the next council then?
Yeah.
All right.
And Matt's already bought off on the changes to his contract. So it's just, like I said, just treating him no different than any other manager in the city. And
But the changes have no financial impact to the city.
no,
Okay.
actually, they're probably a benefit and how this came about. We just had some challenges this past year. It's what the current system is complicated and requires a bunch of additional coding and monitoring of that to make sure we get it right. So we just want to simplify things and standardize it is really what it's about. Next one is court security. Got some bad news there. We defunded our court security position this last budget because we hadn't been the employee left. We were about ready to sign a contract with Kitsap County to provide us court security. Then COVID happened. And so we just learned, so we planned in this budget, there's money for a contract service with the Kitsap County. And Kitsap County has informed us that they're backing, they don't want to provide that service to anybody else. They're terminating their contract with the city of Bremerton. And we said, well, we asked the question, is that just for this year? And they said for the foreseeable future. So Debbie, Sharon, as Els, our court administrators, reached out to private security firms, and nobody has any interest for the limited number of hours that our court operates to provide us a security guard. So we're not sure what we're going to do. I'm just making you aware of it. We've got a pool of dollars, and we might end up having to fund another part-time employee position, or it's not a good use of our police officers at their wage, in particular when we have 4 police officers with openings to be pulling somebody off the street to do screenings and that type of thing up there. So
you know what Bremerton's needs are?
Every day of the week. So we could reach out to
something we could share.
I don't know. I don't believe so, but we'll definitely check into that, John. And it isn't something that's gonna affect us today, but and I would hope by the end of the year or a year from now that our court's operating like it used to, and we have people in the building. So, and as that gets closer, we're going to need to talk about this some more, and as we kind of develop some solutions. So, I don't have any answers. I'm just telling you about a problem at this point. Sorry.
Well, wasn't it when we first started with court security that the security person actually worked out of the court budget, and then they got passed off to the police department? Can we put it back into court?
Problematic for some reason. Debbie, can you remember why?
That was before my time, but I would suspect it had to do with kind of who has jurisdiction over the employee and manages the employee, but that's a guess on my part. Rebecca might remember.
If I remember correctly, it had to do with they have a limited commission, and that the court can employ somebody, and the police chief doesn't want to give somebody a limited commission as an officer and then not have any supervisory authority over them because he's responsible for their actions and their training. So if my memory serves correctly, that's
regardless of who they report to, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of, can we create a position that's a lesser level than a police officer?
Yes.
There is an issue about representation. I don't know that if a court employee would have to be part of the union or not.
Yeah, they all are. They have union up there too.
But the guild, I guess, the policeman's union.
This person wasn't part of the guild previously. And it was a part-time position. So we went away from that because we thought we had that before.
Right.
A 30-hour employee, 25, 30-hour employee. And then when they left, and then they left us, and we thought, oh, wonderful. We'll contract with the county, and the county was willing to do that.
Right.
Then COVID happened. So we might have to backtrack to where we were previously with a part-time employee, and you guys we're taking the dollars that we were going to pay the contract and reallocating them. So
basically more to come.
More to come.
All
right. Last item is Debbie on a resolution.
Again, sorry, I missed the deadline for the Finance Committee packet. You will see this on your February 23rd council agenda. I've mentioned this issue before. We found a resolution that currently affects one union member, in that when he was hired in the police department, he did not qualify for the state retirement plan that the rest of our officers are in. And the resolution wasn't written for him, that it had been a practice the city was doing where we put an equivalent amount of money into their 457 or deferred compensation account, similar to a 401k. That now affects only one person. And in talking that through with our legal counsel and the union, everybody agreed that the proper place for that type of arrangement is in that union contract. And that helps us to clean up some potential ambiguity in that resolution that could make it much more broad than we ever intended it to be. So you'll see two items on your agenda next week. One is the memorandum of understanding with the Patrol Guild to add that to their union contract, and simultaneously another action item to repeal a resolution to just fully clean that issue up. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. That one is coming. I'd mentioned that to this group probably 3 months ago now.
Okay. Anything else?
All I've got. Questions from the committee?
Well, we have a little bit of time between this meeting and the next one. So if there isn't anything else, we will stand adjourned.
Well, I see our next meeting is scheduled for February 16th at 6 o'clock.
March.
or excuse me, March 16th. You're correct. Thank you, John. So with that, thank you, John. The meeting's adjourned and I'll stop the recording.
Thanks, everyone.